Red Script Studio presents Living Vicariously in the Trauma That Binds series, Empowering Through Tarot with Brandy Marie. Caution: the Trauma That Binds series contains mature subject matter that may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, Podcast Nation, and welcome back to another episode of Living Vicariously in the Trauma That Binds series. Today, we have the pleasure to have Brandy Marie with us. Brandy is a tarot card reader and medium. Brandy uses her experience in trauma, mental health, and health coaching to aid her clients during and after emotional sessions. So just one moment while I get Brandy on the line.
Hello.
Hi, Brandy.
Hey, Tim. How's it going?
Not too bad, my dear. Yourself?
Pretty good. Just, chilling with my incense going and popped out the past lives deck because I'm like, well, since we're talking about it, I guess I'll pull it out. Yeah, it's still a good deck. So, yeah. How are you doing?
Oh, not too bad. We're all good here, nice and ready to go.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah. So why don't we just kind of start off with you sharing with the listeners a little bit about yourself, your background, and kind of what your motivation was for accepting my request to join the podcast.
Sure. So, sorry, my brain's going backwards with the question. Anyways, the motivation for accepting the invitation was, I think, more out of curiosity because the side was mental health more than like spirituality. But after our first round of communication, I was like, well, I'm getting a kick out of this. This is fun. And I can already tell the guides are incredibly chatty. So this is going to be distracting. But yeah, they typically guide me where to go. And I had people suggest that I reach out to different podcasts directly, where when I did the initial post, it was kind of like whoever's meant to come and invite me is meant to come. Like, don't push it type thing. And then with my background, it's all over the map. But basically, I went to school to become a social worker. I did that for roughly 8 or 9 years with a little break in there to be a kindergarten, I can't say that word, assistant. So that was entertaining and realized very quickly that I did not want to be a teacher. And then went back to social work. And then, unfortunately, in 2018, I had a car accident that aggravated my fibro and caused a lot of PTSD, anxiety, depression, huge migraines, made it very difficult to work. The work process of trying to return to work through disability, and then dealing with car accident lawyers was a lot. So I ended up having to go on to long-term disability. And that's what then led me into tarot and, trying to figure out a meaning for all of this. And that led me down some different rabbit holes in the woo-woo and the spiritual realm. But I think it all kind of worked out in my favor.
Well, yeah, I would think so. But unfortunately, we have to have those kind of experiences to learn and get past them. And one of the things you had mentioned in our previous conversations was you had been interested in tarot at a young age.
Yes. So funny enough, one of the things I used to do a lot actually with my mom as a kid was go to garage sales. Love them even more now. Just such a little treasure hunt experience. But I came across this one deck at one point, and it was just very cartoonish in the drawings and found it really interesting. I was probably around 10, 11, I think. Didn't really understand it very much, just found it interesting. And then kind of forgot about it, gone to high school, ended up in a Catholic high school, and it was, a little bit of, bad girl syndrome where it's like, well, I'm going to get into tarot and do something that's not seen as proper with the church. And so did some tarot and some Ouija board experiences with a friend of mine and spooked ourselves. It was great. And then I actually had some friends' parents around me at the time that did palm reading. And I found it fascinating, but again, didn't really get seriously into it. And then at the time of, or well, not at the time of, but around the time of the car accident, a friend of mine said that she knew of a place that offered a class in tarot reading and would I be interested in going? So I thought, sure, why not? Something to kind of keep me occupied and learn something new. So I went to one class that was specifically on one of I think the first class was just the major arcanas, and I really enjoyed it. It was like 2 hours long. I just found it quite neat and took the rest of the classes. And then from there, went on a huge rabbit hole of watching different YouTube videos to try and learn how different people read the cards, learned about oracle cards. Honestly, got a little bit frustrated with the tarot cards because I find that they can be a little too specific sometimes in their meanings, not open enough to some variations. That's why I started looking at the oracle cards and my guides. The way I have three spirit guides that are incredibly chatty and distract me a lot. So with them, they like to show me images and like songs and movies and things like that. So I find with oracle cards, they point out more about the image than like the wording on the card sometimes. And then from there, I just started to kind of have a fever needing to create my own decks. So I did that for a little bit. I think I pumped out like 3 or 4 decks in less than a month because I was staying up late and creating, which was great and not great because I needed sleep. Yeah, and then from there, I started doing little readings for family and friends. And then it just kind of grew from there. And I found, honestly, I was able to make more connections with people through tarot. I actually found a lot of people in my circle, like my family, my friends, were very kind and very open to letting me test it out on them and talking about their spiritual experiences, like whether it was seeing ghosts or talking to passed on family members. So that was kind of nice and supportive. But it was also a little tricky because, again, at the same time, I was going through my own mental health experiences and I was getting a little concerned that, especially since I was getting visions, I could hear things. I was starting to worry that maybe I was going through a bit of a psychosis. So it was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can kind of understand that. It's a little disheartening, fear, anxiety when kind of things happen that you can't really explain. And
Mm.
then later on, when you figure out kind of how the universe kind of works, and then it starts explaining itself, and it's just like, huh, there it is.
Yep. Yep. A little bit. It's not so great. Like some of the things that are interesting now, whereas before were a bit more frightening. And I do find it's common with people who are interested in meeting their guides and, opening up their gifts, because I do believe everybody has their own gifts. There's concern and worry about bringing in dark forces or something negative getting attached to you, or, like I said, feeling like you're going through a psychotic break. So if there's those kind of concerns, please seek appropriate help for it. But there's ways to keep yourself protected. And for the most part, I have found this helpful. I have found this to be something to help me stay grounded, to help me through those like dark thoughts, dark times, and make me feel like I can continue for another day. There's a purpose. And then again, making the connections with different people. And even a lot of people I found are ones that I'll talk to and they'll say to me that they don't let their spouse know that they're having a reading with me or a family or whatever, because they don't want somebody to like think they're being silly or be judged in some sort of way, which is unfortunate. But it's neat to have those conversations too, to help them open up to their own gifts again, or just being open to spirituality and what that means for them.
It's definitely important for someone to figure out what spirituality means to them, what they're going to figure out. And
Mm.
for me, I thought I knew, and then through my own personal experiences, I had lost it. And as we had discussed, I've basically found it again, and doing kind of
Mm.
a deep dive back into it.
Mm.
And one of the things that have been shown to me now, which was shown to me 25 years ago, and this has to deal with my father's suicide. So here's a trigger warning here. When he had passed, I was told that it was pills that had taken his life, and something about that didn't sit right with me because I was keep getting these images of like a white spot on somebody's forehead type of thing. And most recently, I started doing some more writing about my experiences just to kind of make sense of it all. And so I
Mm.
had asked my mom, because I showed her the story, and I just asked just to see if it was kind of on point with what had happened, because I was only 4 years old at the time. So I had no idea what had happened. And she's like, "Yeah, you're pretty much right, but you got the one thing wrong." And in my description, I had used the gun that they would use on the cows to stun them before they would butcher them at the butcher shop. Turns out it was actually a sawed-off shotgun, and I was right all these 25 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So now you can kind of understand why I'm doing a deep dive into this, because
Yeah.
I was right. Well, they
Yeah.
were right, I should say.
I like the way how you said that though, that you were right, they were right. You're all right. They were showing you the image. It's up to you to determine what that image means. So they were right in showing you the image. You were right in deciphering it. I think also at the same time, it takes time to understand what it is. Like you said, it happened when you were 4. You're not meant to understand that at 4. Nobody is. And a little disclaimer here for me, when I get talking, sometimes because my guides are chitter chattery, they're very direct and blunt. So please know it may come out like that, but my heart goes out to you and your family, because that would have been a bit of a shock, especially as a 4-year-old trying to, one, understand what suicide is, and two, why somebody would do it. So I am sorry that you went through that, but it is also amazing that your guides were able to come through with that information for you. And even more so that your mom was open to having that discussion with you at a later time.
Well, and I think it's just one of those things that it needed to be done, and I just asked her straight out, because I've finally been able to process and make sense of what had happened, and she just gave me a straight answer to a straight question, and she's like, "I'm sorry, I didn't tell you the truth," and I was like, "Well, in my experience, all truths are half truths, so I'm not surprised. I forgive you. I love you. Let's move on."
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It was probably like that's one of the things that I find interesting in terms of spirituality, or even like I'm gonna veer off because this is me, but
That's okay.
a lot of like adult topics, right? Whether it's suicide or sex or drugs or whatever, a lot of adults don't really want to talk about it with kids or anybody really under the age, I'd say, of 16, anyways, because there's this fear if we talk about them, they're going to want to do it, or we're going to lead them down a bad path type thing. Whereas I come from the mindset of, especially if the kids are asking questions or, discussing these kind of topics openly, that's your chance to talk about it because they're curious, right? There's no point having it in the dark. It makes it scarier, and or it makes them more curious and makes it kind of more fun because it's a naughty thing, right? And as I do that, I'm doing air quotes because that's how it works. But it's good that your mom was able to be honest with a direct answer to a direct question. And yeah, that would have been hard, I think, for both of you. But the fact that it didn't ruin the relationship between the two of you, it just was like, okay, I got my answer. Thank you very much. Like, very mature.
Well, and that's I don't know. It's just one of those things where you realize your place in things, your responsibility, and then once you start writing it actually down, I find that, and it's like, yes, things kind of like come to me in my mind, or kind of like I can hear s- like words here and there to kind of point me in the right direction. But more or less times out of not, when I write something, it's more or less I'm channeling my guide and they are writing it for me in a way. So I've what I've written so far, I'm on my 4th chapter.
For you.
That's
That's exciting.
right. That's almost 4,000 words that I've written in 2 days.
Oh, look at you go. See, you know what it's like to just be like, yeah, I gotta do this. I'll sleep later. That's so awesome. See, I love that. And like you said, sometimes writing it out, even if it doesn't really go anywhere, it's good to write it out. It brings some clarity for you. It brings some calm and peaceful energy sometimes. Like it's a release. It's a healthy release.
Well, I've always kind of treated it as a coping mechanism, and then when things kind of got hard, I just felt like not doing it, and like I kind of
Yep.
like lost that had no, I only kind of write when I felt like doing it type thing, when I had like something that inspired me or felt a certain way or this, that, or had a
Mhm.
certain story in mind that I wanted to write. So I had lost that for many, many years. And then, yeah, surprisingly, that was should have been the one thing that I should have done,
There's that should word.
right?
I hate that bloody word.
Because we're
I
all
try
about,
and,
oh, sorry.
oh no, go ahead, go
I was
ahead.
just gonna
Go ahead.
say the universe is all about free will and choice. So now it's saying, "Look at you now, jackass."
Yeah. So I always laugh about it because of the free will. Like, I swear there are times where, and I'll joke with my partner, and we'll be like, I swear our guides are just like, that's it, we're out, we're going on vacation. They're not listening. Like banging our heads against a wall. I try and look at it more like you were just not meant to do it at that time, right? There's this old saying, I used to hear it a lot, where it's like, God would not give you more than you could handle. And some, which is lovely. And at the same time, it's like, I can't handle any more shit. Can you please leave me be? So sometimes we're just not meant to do those things in those times because that's added pressure or added something that we just can't do in that moment. Other times I look at it like, because I'm a big procrastinator with certain things, it has to get to a certain point where you are like compelled to do it. So, like you said, in the past 2 days, you've written 4 chapters. Had you been writing before now, it probably, you'd probably have your 4 chapters, but you probably wouldn't have had them as quickly or had that, like the revelations you've had during it because you've written it in such a short amount of time. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, no, and it just seemed easier to write this because it was taken from my personal life, right? And instead of trying to
Absolutely.
think of like, because I like doing sci-fi and fiction and this and that,
Oh,
but even then I have
yeah.
to try and incorporate life and whatnot into it because it's hard. Like my big thing, I have a hard time visualizing things. I'm very logical and kind of more science and that's kind of thing. Not like I have to try and work around that basically.
So that must be fun for you to have that scientific side so strongly, to then, look at the spiritual, because the spiritual is like hugely abstract in my mind.
Well, and that's where the hermetist and alchemy comes in.
Eh, There.
So, and there's a few principles in the Hermetic text that are actually been proven by science, and that's vibration and polarity.
Hmm.
So,
It's that word, proof.
well, not proof per se, more like validation, like verification, trust but verify,
Affirmation.
pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get a kick out of it because, like, with you, I find you very easy and open to read. So I'm having to hold back a bit, and that's a good thing. Like, that's like open energy is very helpful, and it makes things like readings or just regular conversations flow a bit better. The reason why I'm laughing with the proof and again quotations around it, and then again, all I'm hearing is that, do you remember the Santa Claus with Tim Allen? Tim Allen, right? With the little elf, and she says, seeing isn't believing, believing is seeing. Remember that? Anywho, um,
Vaguely, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
so that's kind of where I come from with a lot of it. But when I'm around people that are a bit more skeptical to these things, or they're very, very scientific in the sense that, if they can't see the rock and feel the rock and touch it and weigh it and all this, and the rock doesn't exist, kind of thing. Well, I'm not here to convince you that there's a rock. Like, if that rock doesn't exist for you, then fine. Not right sure where I was going with all of that.
See, well,
Sidetrack.
no, that's okay, and it kind of helps with the pyramid in a way because there's the spiritual, there's the scientific and logic, and then there's kind of the oh hell, I lost my train of thought because you had just
Yay!
mentioned it. And damn you, you rubbing off.
Yay, energy. Sorry.
But yeah, no, there was a point that I was gonna make that basically had three things. Oh, philosophy. That's it. So there's
There you go.
philosophy, there's science, and then there's spirituality. And when you combine all three, well, you kind of get how the universe fucking works.
Fair. It's interesting too, again, total segue, but it's interesting the way that you say it, the three, because it's like a pyramid,
Right?
right? So you've got to have the two balancing the top, and I see the top pyramid as kind of the connection to what I would say is divine or spirit. Oddly, I have a triangle thing in front of me. Anywho, it also makes me think of in terms of mental health. I've had doctors and counselors and whatever say to me that they call it a stool, which doesn't seem as stable to me as a triangle. But in order to have really good mental health, parts of these things need to be a part of your daily life. So it might be medication, counseling, exercise, like basically different parts and aspects of you to have good mental health. So having spiritual or religious connections can be important to some people. If you're not chemically balanced, then trying to get balance to help keep you steady. And then, having emotional health is important. Physical health is important. Like they all play a part. Having a hard time with their little triangle. So clearly I don't fully agree with it, but there is a point to it. So I think all, like, to me, whether we're talking about mental health, spirituality, any kind of health, physical health, there's more than one way to look at it. There's more than one way to support it. And it's definitely, I keep leaning towards the connections are what's needed, because without those connections, we're not really understanding the world around us very well. And we're also not really understanding ourselves.
No, you're absolutely right, because it really wasn't until I started this podcast and meeting people from basically all around the world, different aspects of life, is when things kind of started to change.
I think it's great. I think that you've started the podcast. I think that it's amazing that you're meeting people from around the world. I find it very fascinating to learn about different cultures. One of my little guilty pleasures, which most people around me know this, I very much enjoy indulging in 90 Day Fiance, like anything 90 Day. So learning about how those cultures, what's the word I'm looking for? Like how they communicate, importance of family for them, relationships, how they view love. Religion does play a huge part in some of the relationships as well. Of course, does finances because it's a relationship. So it's very interesting to me to watch, and I do get a kick out of talking with different people, not just about 90 Day, of course, but these kind of conversations, because it kind of reminds me to sit down and think about what I've learned over the years, and also the importance of journaling, which I have to admit, like, honestly, good job for you and clap, clap, because I know my guides are shouting at me and have been for solid 6 months that I should journal, and I just don't want to. I'm very stubborn at times.
It
Yeah.
not quite in a sense a journal. It's supposed to be a book eventually.
Yeah.
But I basically I got this very clear message: write the book, your karma will be cleared.
Aw. For you, then what's karma?
That's I guess, and one thing, the familial karma, from like past lives. My basically the what had happened with my dad. He put kind of a stain on our family, cosmic karma kind of thing. Is I don't know.
Fair.
So it's just
Us.
again, that has to deal with the Akashic records, going back to Japan, India, and then finally ancient Egypt and Hermes, and yeah, a bunch of big rabbit hole if you're interested.
Yeah, love rabbit holes. There's so many. Um, it's interesting, and I would agree with that it's like a clearing of karmic energies, because there is something that I've learned in I guess, the group that I've kind of, learned some of the spiritual stuff from, where it talks about if you clear, like, not if, but as you're clearing your karma in your current lifespan, you can also clear your family's karma and their histories. And if you go back in your family, like I identify as female. So if I look over, you know, the history of some of the females in this timeline and bloodline, some of them have had hard experiences with relationships. So as I develop my relationships and make healthier choices on some of them, I'm also clearing past karma. So in a way, it's kind of good. It's a bit of a push for me to do it, because I kind of feel like that's nice. I get to help family karma. It's also a bit of a pain in the ass, if I'm honest, because I'm like, goody, I get to take on that too. Like, yay. But that sounds like what you're doing is you're accepting, I don't want to say accepting your fate, because that seems kind of like dun dun dun, but you're accepting taking that challenge on
uh,
and writing the book.
it, more responsibility, I guess.
Ooh, that's a heavy word.
If I don't, who else will?
Well, there you go. See? So in this way, because you have kids,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So okay, things don't always know what's shared on podcasts. So it's almost like you're doing it for them as well. So they don't have to feel like it's their responsibility as they get older to clear their karma, your dad's, so on and so forth. Like you're handling it, you know?
Well, and it's kind of funny that this conversation popped into my mind with another guest that's going to be recorded soon. Her name's Taiwana. She's also a medium and oracle as well. She's a very lovely, awesome lady. Can't remember if I mentioned her to you or not. But we that's had a conversation, and during that conversation, all that kind of stuff came up, and she had basically told me that I'm already doing the work. That was my message,
You are.
right?
Sorry.
Yeah.
My laughs come with smiles. Like, yes, you are. I feel like you've been hit with I don't know what to call it. They're showing me like a piñata stick. They're like, we hit him enough. He's fine. He's good. So I would absolutely agree with her, and I think it's fascinating that you'll have her on the I'll call it a show, but the podcast as well.
And it's literally because of you two and another lady named Jocelyn. That's kind of, I don't know, the three of yous the kind of put me back into, hey, here's the direction you kind of need to go to finish off what you need to do.
Perfect. I love that. See? Connections. They're important.
Definitely. All right.
Yeah.
Speaking of connections, when you were transitioning from your social work life to the tarot reading, how did that kind of play a role? Were you able to take some clients and turn them in from clients of social work and turn them into clients of tarot, or vice versa, or because it kind of go hand in hand when you do a session?
So definitely not able to take any of the clients I used to work with. I worked on a very want to say like hospital style setting, because the patients clients I worked with were coming from hospital from having a stroke, and prepping them to get ready to either return home or have the hard conversations of not return to home and having to go into a care facility, and then working with families as well around helping their loved one transition whichever way they were going. So it was a very different setting. And honestly, I didn't like having any name badges or anything that stated that I was, the social worker. And I had worked on other units similar to that before. Same thing, didn't like being called social worker. One job, we just referred to ourselves as counselor because people have such a bad reaction to the wording social work. And I get it, I respect it. Like I've had people say that, we're baby snatchers or not want to even talk about their personal life around me in general, because they're afraid I'm going to sit there and judge them. And I'm like, no, I'm too tired. Like, that's not what I do in my day-to-day life. So with the tarot stuff, I find it's a bit more open, a little bit more fluid in the conversations, and definitely different clients. Oddly enough, how I started to gain some people to do readings for was because one of the people in my circle asked me to some questions to do more so with cryptocurrency. which is a very hard energy and not my favorite to work with. So asked me a couple questions, and then after I gave the answers, asked if he could post it to a group he was a part of. I said, sure, why not? Like at the time, I still got a kick out of random reading. It was just fun to kind of work on my skills, basically. And then from there, had somebody interested in having me be a part of their YouTube channel to do some live readings for them. So I did that once a month for a few months. And then just the energy, like I said, was very tough. People were wanting very specific questions to do with their finances. And my brain is not a mathematical brain, so I don't do numbers. So not everybody understood that. So if people are asking me questions, even with finances, I'm probably going to give more of a flowery metaphor type answer because that's how me and my guides speak. And then it's up to you to kind of decipher some of the messages because they're, the guides will be very clear. Sometimes they'll give me an answer that I'll give to the person I'm reading for. It will make absolutely no sense to me. It might not even make sense to the client at the time, but it will later for the client. I'm not always meant to understand everything. I'm just meant to channel and give. So the social work end of things can come through in readings a lot when it's talking about relationships or family dynamics. I've had some parents who are very lovely that I've done readings for, and they'll ask about their kids, which is absolutely understandable and fair. I'll give whatever answers come through. And then sometimes, if they're kid, I say kid, but, they're like a teenager, they'll ask if I can do a reading for their child. And sometimes I will do the reading just with the teenager, or sometimes the parent will be a part of the reading, but they just let me and the teenager talk. They're just kind of there to hear what has to be said, which is understandable. So, yeah, it's fascinating. It's interesting. I find if I say I'm a tarot reader, people typically go, ooh, tell me more. Whereas if I'm like, oh, I was a social worker, they'd be like, oh, good for you. Sounds like a hard job.
No, I'm guessing that was one of the main stigmas when you switched careers was, well, I guess you lost the stigma because you could call yourself a tarot reader instead of a social worker.
Yeah, I thought so. I would say that I traded stigmas.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
reason being, so I don't, what's the word that I'm looking for? I don't really say I'm a social worker anymore because actually this past March I gave up my registration and license with the College of Social Workers where I am because I haven't been able to do that line of work for such a long period of time. So that was kind of hard, and I had to talk to some of my social work friends that I still connect with because it felt like losing a piece of me, especially after doing so many years of schooling and training and working up the ladder, if you will, trying to get to where I was trying to go, which oddly enough was to try and be a counselor, but I only hold a Bachelor of Social Work, so you don't really get to do a lot of counseling. It's a lot more paperwork, which heads up to anybody out there becoming a social worker. Please really ask yourself what type of work you think you're going to do because it's probably going to be different than what you think. So just FYI, the stigmas that I traded that for, honestly, is being on disability. So I have friends that I'm grateful for that are also on disability because they've helped me navigate the system a bit. We'll call each other to be like, I'm having a hard day, or I've had to talk to my disability case manager, and it feels like an interrogation most of the time. And for me, for most of us, it's a huge trigger. We have to go through and repeat how, from the last time we spoke to them till that day, how things have been going. It's a lot of fear-based stuff because you're afraid to say you're having a good month or a good day, that they might turn it around and say, well, good, then you can go back to full-time work. And that's not the case. Or if you say that you're not doing well, then they're going to push medication on you, which is a whole nother ball game, and actually something I'll be bringing up in my blog over the next month. So it's a lot. And even some family members still don't really understand being on disability. They still think that there's opportunity to go to work, and that work is what will, give you purpose. And so It like I said, it's trading a stigma for the other. Would I go backwards? No. God, no. I, I don't wish to relive anything. There was also a lot of discussions when I went through my divorce, other divorced people that I know, family, friends, what have you, would say a lot around me, like, if I could go back to such and such time in my life, I wouldn't have married that person, or I would have divorced them sooner, or this or that. And that's where I'm just like, I couldn't, I only knew what I knew at the time, and I made those choices based on what I knew and what I felt at the time. And I feel like I'm a different person from then. So clearly my choices are different now. Yeah.
No, that's completely fair because exactly, you go through one situation, years go by, you're a completely different person from when that happened.
And I'm grateful for that. Like, holy hell. So kind of it makes me laugh a bit in a holy hell mode because some of the families that I worked with or even friends that I was with, they would, even as a teenager, right, like I was the go-to person to be like, oh, so and so's breaking up, or this couple got into a fight, like usual high school drama, right? We were our own reality show, I swear to God. So I definitely was like the counselor of the group. But what was funny was I remember one time one of my friends was going through a situation where she really liked somebody, and this guy really wasn't that interested. He wasn't texting her back, this and that, which was upsetting to her. And I tried talking to her about it, but we were with a group of friends, to be fair, at the time. And she got pretty snappy and was like, not everything needs to be talked about. No, 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 no. Okay, then we won't talk about it. But it's something that has kind of always stuck with me because it's one of those things where it's like, do you talk about it or do you not talk about it? And so I'm very much a brat in terms of do as I say, not as I do, because I know that I should share something sometimes or be a bit more open or this or that. And I don't. Like from a young age, there was a lot of secrecy in my home. I grew up with an alcoholic father, a mom that wasn't too sure how to handle it sometimes, and an older brother that had his own mental health going on. So a lot of it was, get up, go to school. As I got older, go to work, get good grades, do well at your job, don't tell anybody what's going on at home. Uh, and, it was also, didn't really matter what my feelings were at any given day. It was how's everybody else responding that day and how do I react and try and keep things as calm as possible if I'm at home. So try not to be home. So now that I'm older, it's a big deal for me to feel comfortable, safe, happy in my home.
No, I can absolutely understand that because once you come from a broken home like that, you have this feeling or longing, pining, whatever hard word you want to call it, for
Mhm.
this sense of home because you just don't know what it feels like, and once you're finally able to make one for yourself, make it safe, make it comfortable, and you're like, this is what it is.
Yeah. Once you once my ex left and I had to learn to live on my own with my two dogs at the time, I became very protective of who came into my home. If their energy was good, they could come in. If, I'd have friends, that was one of my favorite compliments, honestly, was I'd have friends come over, especially my mom friends, and they would leave and then message me later and be like, thank you so much for letting me come over. It was such a lovely break. Your home feels so calm and relaxed. Like, I was like, you come over anytime you need to. Like, have a mommy break. It's okay. Come pet the dogs, like just chill. So that it was something I worked really hard for and something that made me really happy to share. But again, if there were times where I would have my family over and we'd get into an argument, or my mom and brother would get into an argument, and I was like, leave, like just leave. I can't have this energy here. It's not helpful to me, to you. It's just going to get worse. So best to go.
Well, and then you have every right to do so. You have to protect your space, right?
Hmm. Yep, protecting of space is huge for me. The other things that are hard and have kind of stuck with me, which again I think is something that I'm learning, like we were talking about before, one of the decks that I have is the Doreen Virtue Past Life Oracle deck, and I keep pulling out one specific card every single time I do a reading for me. And that's the other thing. If I do readings for others, sometimes messages are meant for myself and the client, and it's kind of that extra kick in the butt, like, hey, please look at this, because I don't really sit down and do readings for myself as often as I used to. But one of the ones that keeps popping out is the vows card. And in this deck, it's more like having taken a religious vow in a past life. So from that, I'm like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. Like I would have taken a vow of silence, so very hard to speak. I would have taken a vow of poverty. So trying to pull in abundance, I feel like I don't want to have, quote unquote, dirty money or like blood money in any way. Like I want it to be above board, right? Like it's okay. And then like just the overwhelming, I want to use the word desire, but that's not the right word. The like overwhelming need to follow a vow. If I've taken it, I follow it. So when I got married in my early 20s, I didn't realize at the time just how strongly those vows meant to me. And as I got older, they became more important. So in particular, don't cheat. Um, which clearly was not the ex's vow. So so there's a conflict I find at times for me in my present life and this current lifetime. I do want to call in abundance in various ways, right? Not just finances, but having wonderful people around me and being able to see beautiful places and travel and things like that. But it's one of those things where it's like, because of past life, if I took a vow of poverty as a way to serve, I'm kind of like, well, in this lifetime, I still feel like I'm serving. And that's kind of one of the things, in a roundabout way of explaining this, but one of the things I kind of came to when I was going through, and I still go through having to talk to disability quite often, in terms of my case. When I was first doing it and having to go through, extra doctor's appointments and these assessments to determine if I was like faking my injuries or my PTSD, and constantly being judged and feeling fearful of leaving the house. That was awesome. But in my quiet in the evenings, I would simply remind myself and speak to my guides and be like, there has to be a purpose to this. And if it's meant to be a way to serve others, I will serve others, but keep me safe and secure. And that's just kind of how I've always played it, especially when finances aren't great or I find myself feeling, I don't want to say unsafe, but just not very stable in a situation. Then I just kind of am like, give it purpose. Please help me find the purpose in it. If it's, I'm meant to go through this hard time so I can support another when they go through a hard time, I accept it. And I've done that since I was a teenager. So is that necessarily for everybody to do? No, please no. We're not all meant to pray and serve certain ways. That's just, this is my current life path, and I accept it, but I'm also very stubborn and don't always want to listen to the guides. So we have a little tackle here and there, and then eventually see eye to eye, meaning I will listen. But
Yeah, that's kind of how it goes.
yeah. So anywho, there you
Now,
go.
so, speaking of your guides there, could you kind of explain how you discovered what it was like to realize that you've been communicating with them? So, like you said, it kind of made you feel like you were losing your mind. So let's say if someone else is
Mhm.
kind of going through this experience or having these messages, signs, or whatnot, to kind of have some sort of, let's say again, valid proof.
Mhm. There you go.
Let's
Yes,
just change the
mic
word. How
drop.
about that?
There you go.
So
Uh,
just kind of some proof that they're not going crazy.
yeah. So my biggest thing has always been, if you question you're going crazy, you're probably not crazy. One of my favorite, just as a side thing, one of my favorites was I took an abnormal psychology course, one of my first years in university, and I adored the teacher. And he explained he had a client who spoke to his own toaster, and that was okay, no problem. Everything was good. However, don't you know, if he were to speak to his neighbor's toaster, that would be a problem. That's how this client felt. He was fine, sane, no issues, because he talked to his own toaster. But if he talked to somebody else's, well, then that's just weird. So, my point being, if you think you're crazy or you're questioning it, you're probably not. But again, if you really are worried, please go seek some medical help. That, just again, disclaimer. For me, I also looked at it like, is this helpful to me? So some of the visions that I were getting or was getting, especially during the initial parts of separation, I remember my mom took me to a spiritual church, and one of the ladies there was doing Reiki for free on people, just a couple minutes each. And when she did the Reiki over me, I had this immediate, vivid image in my mind of a picture of my ex and me together, and it just shattered. And I remember thinking, okay, we're done. Shit is shattered. We're done. So I didn't necessarily like the images that were coming, but I knew there was a reason for it. I also felt like if I was upset and said to my guides, I need your help, please show me something hopeful, they would immediately give me a sense of calm and show me something that made me feel happy, like a beach setting or celebrating with friends, or it would be something where they would just all of a sudden have my dogs come sit with me and they'd be snoozing and snoring and just very relaxed, Did I understand right away that I even had guides? No. I just understood I was getting images and downloads and found it fascinating. I also very much wanted to believe, again, that there was a purpose for everything. And going down the YouTube rabbit holes and stuff, I was watching a lot of videos on like what makes you awesome or what makes you attractive or, what are you calling in? What do your guides want to tell you? That kind of thing. So anything that was like kind of an uplifting or positive message, I would watch, hands down. I would spend hours doing this some days. I would also practice listening to some YouTube videos on different positive affirmations first thing in the morning, because there were honestly some days I didn't want to get up. So this was the way to start my day. How the guides came about was honestly through the YouTube channel that I did with the one lady, where I was a guest, but she asked questions just like you did. Well, how do you communicate with your guides? And I'm like, what the hell is a guide? I didn't know. So I started researching and going down that rabbit hole. What is a guide? What does this look like? And then I was watching YouTube videos on the clairs, because I'm clair audio and clairvoyant and clairsentient at times. So I'm like, what are these? What does this mean? And it's just through that I started understanding and identifying, oh, I have these guides. And then I was realizing, because as people were doing readings with me and asking about their guides and how many, I was like, oh, you can have more than one? What a fascinating concept. So then I started digging into myself a bit more and realized I have 3 guides. Like I said, very chatty. 2 were more male energy and one's more female. For years, I've always pictured these 2 men sitting on like a bus bench, one who's more elderly, and they're just kind of chatting. And I've always seen them. Didn't really know what that was, but now I realize they're my guides. And the female energy will kind of come in every so often when she feels she needs to, and or to shut the other 2 up. So she's like the tiebreaker when not unsure of things. So the guides are funny. I also will joke if there is a day, especially with my partner, where like the energies are just super weird. We'll joke around and be like, what the hell are my guides up to now? Or his guides, like we'll be brats and kind of blame it on them sometimes as a joke, like, ugh, they just, ugh. But my favorite to share with people are fairies. And again, I've learned a lot of these just through different conversations I've had, because I was volunteering for a little bit at a spiritual store near me. And the ladies there were great and, imparted their knowledge of things and their understanding. And so they started talking about fairies to me, and I was like, that's very fitting because I see fairies as little pranksters. And so I tell people, some people have fairies around them. So if you're very much into nature or plants, you probably have a fairy around you. But also, if you start feeling like the need to play with your hair, or somebody's playing with your hair, or your car keys keep getting misplaced, little shit like that, that's a fairy. They aren't there to be troublemakers. So, like I said, they're pranksters, but they're not troublemakers. So sometimes if they're, misplacing your keys, they're doing it for a reason. It could be because maybe you've just had an argument with somebody in the house and you shouldn't be driving in that moment, or there's an accident to avoid. Other times it's like if they're playing with your hair or something, it's to distract you from a negative thought. And they're like, hey, come play with me, go do something fun. So they're light energy for sure. The other thing that I will share because it's come in my mind. So for anybody, again, if you're diving into this and again feeling a bit nervous around it, you can definitely do some things to help yourself feel protected. So some people use crystals. The easiest one I find is imagining yourself bathed in light. So you can either picture yourself bathed in like a dome of white light, so angelic light is how I see it. Or my favorite one is rainbow light. And the rainbow light is any colors of the chakras, really, to help balance whatever energies are coming for you that day. So you can just ask your angels, please place, an orb of rainbow light around me so I can use whatever energies that need to be blocked, and whatever need to come forward, come in to help me feel better for the day. One of the things that I did, and honestly, I can't remember who taught me this one, but it did work for a little bit. So shortly after the car accident, and I still have trouble driving. There's a lot of PTSD with driving, especially if I'm in traffic, and or sitting at red lights. I start having panics, thinking I'm going to run out of gas, I'm going to get lost, I'm going to have to go pee. Somebody's going to hit me from behind. I'm not going to stop before that. Like I just start playing out all these thoughts, and it freaks me out. So what I started doing was picturing the car being shielded by gold. So the idea with the gold was protection for me, but reflection. So if somebody was going to, merge into my lane with the gold shield, they would be able to see me and avoid me. So that just made me feel like, okay, I'm safe. And that was one of the things that I did a lot was I would ask for my guides to be with me, or I would ask for Archangel Michael to protect me, especially at nighttime. I ask for him a lot because I have nightmares very frequently, which go figure because I used to be afraid of Freddy Krueger as a kid. So I'm like, excellent, can't run away from your own brain. So I have nightmares about driving, and a lot of that is dream interpretation. What I've learned through dream interpretation is feeling like loss of control, which is very understandable, especially in the early stages of the disability claim, because I was losing a lot of control with how my life was at the time. I was losing my job, I was losing my partner, I was at risk of losing friends, I was having being misunderstood by family, I was having to go for like these appointments, these doctor assessments. It felt like I had no choice to do things. It felt like everybody else was trying to dictate things. What made it more complicated was nobody in the medical sphere was talking to each other. So I'd talk to one doctor, and then I'd have to go retell my story to another doctor and another and another. Same with the counselors. None of them could agree as to how to handle my case. So I was trying various things. So I did that for like 3 solid years, and I'm still trying to navigate some of that. So to me, it is because I know some of the stuff that we were looking at talking for the podcast, so I think that's why my brain's all over. So my apologies, but
It's okay.
I think what's important and what I've learned, and one of the reasons why I wanted to come onto this podcast, one is because I haven't shared a whole lot openly about my circumstances or what I went through. I will individually with people if they ask. So certain close friends, especially when things were happening, they know what was occurring. Not everybody knows how to handle it. I had friends and even counselors like, oh my God, how the hell they went through training, I don't know. But like, sorry, but truly,
Oh
you
no.
know, within weeks of the ex leaving, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? because I didn't know everything at that point in terms of his cheating and this and that. They were just like, well, he's gone. So what's your plan for 5 years? Like, where do you want to be in 5 years? And I'm like, Jesus Christ, I don't even know where I'm going to be in an hour. What the hell are you talking about? And at the time, I hadn't let go of hope of him coming back because I didn't understand why he had even left. So, I also really needed to be on the floor. So, again, for any of those who are experiencing stress, like hardcore stress and anxiety, please sit down, sit on the floor if need be, ground yourself physically because it is needed. Like I was having such bad crying fits that I couldn't even sit on the couch. That was so uncomfortable. I had to sit on the floor. And, my mom or some friends, if they witnessed this, they kept trying to get me off the floor because I think it was upsetting to them. And I understand that. But at the same time, it's like they don't touch me. Let me sit on the floor. I need to like have a meltdown right now. So that's for anybody who's either going through that period or experiencing and witnessing it. Like good on you if you can be a supportive person to your friend or family member going through a tough time. Please know sometimes it's just important for you to be there. You don't need to say anything or do anything. Just kind of be witness and share the pain, which is very hard to do. But if you can't, then be honest about it. Don't try and sugarcoat things. I also had a lot of people try and, be like, look on the bright side. Isn't it a great thing you don't have kids? And I'm like, you don't even know our kid's situation. And I was like, at the time, I thought, well, what the hell do I have to live for? I didn't have a job. I didn't have a partner. I didn't feel like I had a purpose. I had no control over my life. The only thing I had were my dogs. And so that's literally what got me out of bed. I'd get up, I'd feed them, I'd let them out in the yard for a pee, and we'd all go back to bed. So it was very hard to eat. And so that's something that I remind people, especially if they have, teenagers that are going through breakups and things like that, or even I have friends where their children are being diagnosed with ADHD and are on medication that suppresses their appetite. And they're like, I don't know what to feed them. And I'm like, soups, jello, puddings, yogurt, smoothies. Like, think of what you could eat if you have like a really bad stomach flu. Like, things that are just very simple. Chewing was my issue even now, when I get really anxious, I can't chew something for very long because that kind of starts, sorry, graphic trigger, but it will start my gag reflex. So, so these are things that, just heads up our ideas, or like if you can take ginger tea or peppermint tea or a Gravol of sorts to settle your stomach. Like there were days, and again, sorry for the graphic, but I will share it. Again, early stages, the partner had left, whatever, was still trying to go to work. I was trying to work between my HR, my manager who wasn't getting the information quickly and therefore bullying me once I got to work, and trying to navigate all my appointments. So I would have my people, my doctors, try and limit my work time because they're like, you need to focus on appointments and healing. And then of course on the work side, they're like, you need to come to work and be present and take care of your job. That was very difficult. So the mornings I'd have to get up to go to work, I would get up. I would basically throw up before going in the shower or in the shower. I would tell myself that's okay. That's just negative energy trying to release my body. Who cares? And then go to work and just try and focus on the job, and then come home and try and eat and then go to bed. And when I had the periods where I wasn't working at all because I was solely focused on trying to heal, days would blur. So that's the other thing I find for people on disability. We tend to stay up later because we're not always forced to get up in the morning for a job. And so days start to blur. So I would have certain things to kind of keep track of the days. It would also force me to do simple self-care things like shower and brush my teeth and my hair and whatnot. So like volunteering once a week, I did for a bit at the spiritual shop because it gave me an opportunity to get up and get dressed and go be with the human race, for a few hours. And then Sunday evenings were my 90-day episodes. So it was like, okay, today's 90 days. It's something distracting. I have a reason to get up. And those were probably my best days, because I would make myself a nice dinner. So if I didn't eat very well during the week, I'd be like, it's okay, I'm going to have a nice dinner Sunday night. And I would take my time in making that dinner. And by taking the time to make the dinner, it encouraged me to want to eat it. I then, and it's always recommended, no matter where I go and who says it, and I say it too, it's good to move your body, even if it's not a full-blown exercise. Just get up, stretch, move your body. Even if you do it in bed, it doesn't matter. It just has a good shift. And if you think about, I'm doing the stretch to get these like kinks out of my body, it's to release any negative, or I'm hearing like sourpuss energy. So that I can replace it with something good. And that's kind of how I see a lot of things. I didn't like feeling again like I was out of control. I hate that. Most of us do. So how do we replace the energy? I don't look at it anymore as like, well, how do I get rid of anxiety? How do I get rid of the depression? Sorry, but fuck that. That's never happening. But sorry,
No,
but
that's
how can I
okay.
replace it? So even like today, we were talking before, like how I was feeling anxious about this because I never really know what the hell's coming out of my mouth, but trying to replace the anxiety with excitement, right? It's interesting, it's exciting, and I appreciate you and anybody listening, being curious and willing to hear my story. Again, I think as humans, those are big things that I have found in general. We want the connections, we want somebody to care and be witness to what we're experiencing. And if somebody's hurt us, and I don't know why this is coming up, but if you've hurt somebody or they've hurt you, the power of saying sorry or hearing that sorry is huge. It seems to not necessarily erase, but eases a lot of shit. So if you get the sorry, then things don't seem as bad. So super random, but there you go.
No, that's perfect advice. That's awesome. Now, when another thing that is pretty important to you is that it's okay to say no.
Yeah.
Now, can
Yeah.
you kind of explain that more for the listeners and how it kind of plays a roles in your personal and professional life?
Well, yeah. So I think no is the funniest word, one of the funniest words, because as kids, little kids, they learn mine and no. I get such a kick out of little ones when they touch something or hold it away like a toy and you're not allowed to touch it. And they'll be like, mine, it's mine, can't have it. And you're like, okay. Or no, simply no. Eat your vegetables, no. Go to the bathroom, no. Take a bath, no. Like, no, 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 can't make me, no. The no is funny to me because, we do teach kids in some instances, yeah, it's okay to say no, but a lot of times you shouldn't. Or I hate that word, shouldn't, but like there's a reason, right? Like wear your seatbelt, don't say no to that. There's a reason for it, kind of thing. As I've gotten older and again, with family, friends, work situations, the no can play a lot of parts. So I actually made a note to myself about this before we started today because I was like, I'm all over the map with it. But really, really, what to me the no is it's where am I going with this? It's a way to set your boundary. It's a way to feel safe and protected, not to feel vulnerable, and a way to help prevent feeling taken advantage of. So saying no isn't just in relationships, it's also in a workplace. It's, if you go and say, take your car in to get fixed or get the tires changed, like we have to do here in Alberta, then, the mechanic may suggest some sort of repair, but you have the right to say no. Maybe you don't feel it's needed. Maybe you don't have the money, whatever. You should have the right to say no and decline something. That also feeds into saying no when it comes to feeling safe in the workplace. If you don't have the right equipment to do something, or you just don't feel equipped or safe with a client, you should have the right to say no. Then when it comes to things like with disability, again, a lot of my friends, we've been through the gamut in terms of, have you tried this medication or that medication or this type of counseling or whatever? Yes, it's good to try different things and see what works for you, but we should have the right to say no. And I equate that to something simple day to day. Like if you go to a restaurant and there's a menu, you should be allowed to order from the menu. It shouldn't be a situation where you're only allowed from this section. Why? I have an entire menu here. Why only this little section? If this section makes me sick, why the hell would I order from that? And that's what I face a lot. So my personal experience with medications have not been great, and that made it very difficult. Again, trying to work and go through all the stuff I was going through from the car accident and the separation, because I was also feeling like a guinea pig trialing different meds. And meds are difficult because it takes time in your system to see if it's going to work. But then if you have to come off of it, it takes time to come off and try a different one. So it can play huge havoc, if they're triggered or meant for anxiety or depression. It can really change things, make it worse. Not great. So that's for me why no is always important to be able to express it. It might be a situation where it's not this, but I'm open to this. And I find that can create more of a conversation as opposed to just a straight no. What else was my point there? Also, just again, as a simple thing, like with kids and things, even when I was a teenager, I'd have friends that were very much into musicals or certain type of shows, friends that were very much into Sailor Moon at the time. Not my thing. I just, fair enough. But it was like I didn't get to be a part of certain things because I wasn't into Sailor Moon. So they thought I was strange. And then they wouldn't really talk to me about shows because I didn't watch the same ones. Or they'd be like, oh, you have to watch it. Like, how can you not like it? Well, I'm not you. Like, that's okay. But all in all, I think learning the word no and setting boundaries is about learning who you are as a person, your interests, your desires, your passions, but also your beliefs in terms of religion and spirituality. And again, that's kind of what we had talked about before was, like me going to a Catholic high school, it's shoved down your throat, certain belief systems around that, and, what the church is asking from you and this and that. You should have the opportunity. There's that damn word again, should, but it would be nice to have the opportunity to look at everything and go, does this feel right for me? And if it doesn't, do I have another option here? And then with that, how does that then work with another person that you're talking to or near or whatever? It's also learning their boundaries. So even though I'm saying it's important to be able to say no in your own world, again, so you feel safe, comfortable, protected, like you have control over certain things, you need to give that respect to whomever else is around you as well.
No, that's completely fair, especially when you get raised Christian or Catholic. Like myself, I was also raised Catholic, and let's
Mm-hmm.
let's 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 just say the priest and religion teacher did not quite like being questioned about existence from a 6-year-old.
Probably not.
No, it was not a good time for anybody.
But that was your purpose.
Maybe, possibly,
Yeah.
to maybe piss them off. Who knows?
Yes, to be the shit disturber. Good job. You did well. Yeah.
So for any future goals, you got any upcoming projects, classes that you're excited about? I know you have a blog, and then we also have something to share with the listeners about what you had mentioned to me over text message just before we started.
Thank you. So with the blog, it's again like my usual stuff all over the map. It initially started out as something very simple, very basic, just talking about my experiences with anxiety and depression and trying to share with others different coping mechanisms I had learned from others or just on my own. And then it kind of started to delve more into like witchy and spiritual methods with it. So the mantras and Reiki and dream interpretations. And then recently it's shifted a little bit more because I'm working on podcasts with a friend of mine called Between a Book and a Bell, and then trying to be guests on other podcasts to share my experiences and whatnot. But with all that, I've started doing like what I call mini interviews, which I still plan to do with you once I get my mind and procrastinating sorted to send you your questions so that I can do mini interviews on my blog of people who have podcasts or like other entrepreneurs that might just want to share some information about what they're doing. But also, I think it's important because one of the things I always feel called to do is for like younger people, for teenagers or 20 some, it can be for anybody, but that seems to be the age range that I'm called to the most when it comes to like, I don't want to call it life coaching, but that's the easiest way I can explain it in the moment. Because I went to a Catholic school, that schooling was very specific in what type of jobs to expect coming out of school. Like you go to college or university and you become a doctor, a lawyer, a dentist, whatever. There's no way in hell we would have come out of it going, oh, I'm going to be a tarot reader. Like, no, you know? So,
Blasphemy.
yeah, exactly. How dare you? Shunned for life. Okay. Um, so my mother would be so disappointed. Anywho, let's put it out there. Sorry, Mom. But yeah, so I think it's important to showcase different careers that people are doing, are in, what it takes to do that type of work, and especially like the reality of what it is. Like I said, when I went into social work, I thought I was going to become a counselor. No, I actually ended up helping people with their taxes, which again, reminder, I don't do math. So no, not an accountant. Um, but in terms of math, yes, what you and I had talked about was for anybody listening. Again, I appreciate you being here with us today. Thank you so much. So grateful for this. But if you use the code 333 Spirit, so 333, the numbers, 333, and then SPIRIT, you can get some money off on a reading for the month of June. So typically I would charge $80 Canadian for a half hour. You would get $10 off using that code, so it'd be 70. Or if you chose to do an hour reading, it's typically 155. You get $20 off, so it'd be 135. Please remind me, people, if I need to write this down. But that is what I plan to do for anybody who is listening, as a thank you, and also so that you can experience what it is like with a reading with me. Most people, the first reading usually ends up being 45 minutes to an hour because my guides, like I said, are chatty, as I'm sure everybody can hear. But they get very excited with new people because there's so much that comes out. I also like to warn people that in readings, I might swear if that's the energy that comes through. I also like to ask people, if there's certain things you don't want me touching on, you need to let me know because my guides are quite blunt and brutal and honest at times, and they will kind of go for the jugular if need be. Like you and I had experienced, if they want to call you out on being a donkey, they will call you a donkey and then apologize for it, right? Ask for forgiveness after the fact. So anywho, anybody who's interested, please do that. I also do once a month what I call give back days or client appreciation days. So the one in June specifically is Thursday, June 6th. So next week. And if you have a reading with me that day for half an hour, it's $55 instead. So just those are kind of some numbers that I've thrown out. They cannot be combined deals, and it's like one per person type thing. I don't have any courses coming up. I've thought about it. A lot of people have asked if I would do a course on connecting with their guides. I honestly haven't figured that part out yet myself. But I'm hoping to get that coming forward. And then the most recent thing, and this is also why I've been all over the map, so my apologies with the energies here, Tim, but thank you for your patience.
It's okay.
I started my own little jewelry line. It's just something I've been doing, crafting, because it calms my anxieties. It gives me something to focus on. But then like you get your energy into it and you're just super focused and you keep doing it. So it's using any kind of like candy themed charms or cutesy charms that I just look at, make me smile, and I go, cool, I'm going to make those into earrings or a necklace or make bracelets. So that's something that I'm just literally just started this past couple weeks, and inputting like happy good energies into it. So whoever chooses to wear those products feel those good energies and know that it's from me and my guides to you to kind of encourage you to have a good day. Like, I know it sounds silly and cliche, but there's times where honestly some of my friends and I are like, did you get out of bed and put on pants? Like, you're not in your pajamas, then that's a good day. Like, good enough. So, yeah, hopefully that answered that question. I think,
Yeah,
yeah,
no, that's perfect. Thank you so much. Now,
yeah,
we are kind of a little over our session here, but that's absolutely okay. It's been a wonderful conversation. So, how about we just kind of finish off with a kind of final piece of wisdom or advice from either you or your guides for our listeners?
sure. Put on the spot. Let's see what they have to say today. Um, seriously? No.
You can.
They're like, we're done. We're tired. Come back.
Wow. Okay.
No, 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 they'll come back. They're being goobers. I think really what it is when it comes to wherever you are in your life, and especially if you choose to do a reading with me, I thank you in advance for the consideration. I know it sounds like a lot of money, so please don't do it if it's not the right time. I mean, I've had readings in the past because they were needed in the time and they were helpful, and that's what the reading is meant to be. Also, I can't promise that it's going to be all uplifting and positive stuff because sometimes it isn't. I read the energy at the time. But for anybody who is experiencing any kind of grief, and with that, I mean losing anything, a job, a friend, a spouse, a pet, a sense of self, any of it, instead of looking at it like you've done something wrong or something bad or shoulda, coulda, woulda, go back in time, please see what's coming forward for a blessing. And I know it sounds probably people will fight me on this, but if you are in a dark space and you're not able to speak to somebody in human form, then please find a way to reach to your guides, to God, to universe, to whatever. Or like I did in the past, just watching different YouTube videos that felt inspiring are very helpful. Also rephrasing certain things, like I said, like, anxiety into excitement, or like I used to hear a lot, rejection is just protection. That was one of my favorites. Also, I'm just going to mention one of the coping mechanisms I had and still use from time to time, song lyrics. So you can actually, if you're trying to communicate with your guides, song lyrics and numbers are really important, but I do find song lyrics are a big deal. So you could just pull up YouTube or wherever you listen to your music and ask your guides to give you a song, and they will guide you in a way to get to a song, but it's the lyrics and it's the support that they're trying to bring in. So I usually get things like Don't Worry, Be Happy is one of the songs I get a lot, or The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow, which isn't a song I enjoy, but the lyric is helpful. Um, but there's lots of things that you can do to try and feel better. And if you're not comfortable sharing your woo woo, witchy, spiritual side with family and friends, then absolutely happy to talk to people about it. A reading can simply be just talking with you through trying to find ways to connect with your guides. But really, again, I see guides as just kind of like friends in spirit form that are meant to help you through things. Some of us are born with them and they stay with us all the time, most of us. It's like that. Others, you get different guides at different times based on what you're going through. Hope that answered that question.
No, that's perfect. That's amazing. I yeah, no, this conversation has been so amazing, Brandy. I do appreciate you. Well, I appreciate us being able to connect the way we have. It's been
Thank you.
well, you're very welcome. You're absolutely remarkable. You're amazing. You went through extraordinary amount of trauma and personal grief, and you were able to come out of it on the other side. Yes, with some stigmas attached, but we're coping with that.
And thank you. Thank you for this experience. Thank you for saying it that way. I guess the other thing to mention is, like you said, coping with it. This is, like I said, I don't always believe that certain things are going to go away, right? Some of us are always going to have anxiety or some form of depression or a mental health thing. Some of us are always going to have to be careful with what we eat, right? Like there's just certain things in this human form we're going to have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, but it's how we cope with it. And I think there's lots of different ways. And yes, you may have tried what you feel to be 1,000 different ways, but sometimes there's still one other way that could work, or some old way that didn't work before might work now. because you've changed in some way and it's a better fit. It's more appropriate now. So again, cliche, but like, please, like, it makes me sad. I know it's a heavy energy, but like, please don't give up. Please just tell yourself one more day. I've had to do that several times. And as shitty as one day is, one grateful thing is that's the bonus of this type of life. We don't have to relive that day. We already had Monday. Fuck Monday, we're done. Now we're on to Tuesday. So each new day brings a chance for some sort of hope, some sort of change, something. And if you can't see it or feel it, please find somebody, human or spirit form, to help you see it. So with that, I send lots of love, lots of joy, lots of laughter. Please go do some movement today. I plan to do something fun for yourself. Go eat chocolate cake if that is your thing. That sounds yummy. But thank you, Tim. Thank you so much for having this podcast. I really do feel like this is an amazing thing for you, and I'm very appreciative to have been a part of this. So thank you.
Well, no, you're absolutely welcome. And as I say to everyone, every single one of my guests, it's you guys that make this show. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have this show. I don't think it would be as semi-successful as it is currently, or getting there, or whatever the hell it is currently. But at the end of the day, it's you guys. It's your stories that are coming out there that are bringing people together.
We wouldn't have a place to bring together if you didn't have this. So thank you for being the center of the circle. Happy to enjoy the circle. I'm just thinking of like the Fockers, like the Meet the Parents, part of the circle.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, my guys talk about different things. But yeah, I think for you, this is really something awesome for you. And don't want to bring the energy down, but I think what you've been through has somewhat been shitty. But I think the fact that you are trying to make understanding of certain things and, trying to clear your karma, that takes a lot of, I'm hearing the word gumption. That's fun.
That's an old one. Jesus.
Right? God. But like, you're being brave, and I think you're doing a very good job of it, and you should be very proud of yourself for doing it. So please know that no donkey in sight today.
It's still on my mantle, by the way.
Is it really? Awesome.
Yes.
Love it. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think this was really lovely, and I'm excited to send you those interview questions so I can get you up on the blog as well. I think that'd be really great, and I wish you all the best of luck with this podcast and everything you're doing going forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It is wholeheartedly appreciated. And like I said, I do plan on keeping in touch because as and as you, besides that, as you know, you got a t-shirt coming your way. So we got to keep in touch with that as well. Right?
Thank you. Love it. Thank you so much. That's so kind. Yay. little things make me go yay.
That's okay. That's
hurrah. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you for the gift, and thank you for this chat. And everybody, again, thank you for listening to us. I hope this was helpful. And definitely please continue to support Tim in his efforts here, because I think it's important.
Again, thank you, Brandy. That was very kind, and I'm getting a little emotional here. It's okay.
I'm sorry. I'm good at that. I'm good at sidetracking people and making them cry. I should have that as my shirt, but that would scare people.
I make people cry, but in a good way.
In a good way. In a relieving, yay, now I can breathe way. Fabulous. Yeah. Well, good. I mean, I'm sorry to have made you cry, but I hope it's a good cry.
It is, and it's we're ending on a very, very good note. So thank you, my dear.
Welcome. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody listening. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I look forward to whomever I do readings for in the future.
That's awesome. Okay. All right. You have yourself a great rest of the day, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Bye now.
Bye.
And that was the very lovely Brandy Marie, everyone. For more information or to book a session with Brandy, you can find her on Facebook, YouTube, and her website. She would definitely love to connect. This has been Living Vicariously in the Trauma That Binds series, Empowering Through Tarot with Brandy Marie. Production copyright 2024 by Tim Douglas, proprietor of Red Script Studios. All rights reserved. If you love what we do and would like to support our cast, please consider donating, becoming a patron, or by purchasing studio merchandise. Living Vicariously in the Trauma That Binds series is the first and only nonprofit podcast in Stratford, Ontario. If you have a story you would like shared, please consider reaching out to the studio. We would also like to connect. Until next time.